Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 1871 podcast. And on this episode, we're talking about what type of manager Reading need to take the club forward following relegation to League One. And we're joined by somebody who is on the list of apparent candidates on the bookmakers list as potential next Reading manager, who has experience as a manager in League One. But before that, a heads up that we have two more episodes for you this week. So the 1871 podcast has an episode tomorrow night and an episode on Friday evening. So that's coming up over the next couple of days. So tomorrow evening, our guest is Reading FC women's defender Lily Woodham. And then on Friday evening, we'll be joined by Dylan Kerr and several Reading fans to discuss what needs to happen in the summer and what type of manager and players Reading need for next season. And talking of managers, our special guest on tonight's episode, as I say, is one of the names on the bookmakers list as a possible next Reading manager at odds of 33-1. So we're going to be talking to him about that. He's managed a club in League One. He's won promotion with that club. And he's a former defender who's become manager of one of the clubs that he used to play for. So he was a defender with Rotherham, Mansfield, Crewe, Port Vale, Northampton and Wrexham, among other clubs. And he was a League One manager last season. And he is available and he is looking for a new role as a manager. So welcome to the 1871 podcast to former Crewe Alexandra manager, David Artell. Thanks for joining us, David.
Good evening, Mark. Good evening, everyone.
Hi, David. So, David, plenty of things we'd like to chat to you about, including the process a club like Reading goes through when they recruit a new manager. But let's start with you, David, your position and your name being on that list as one of the potential candidates as next Reading manager. So firstly, just by way of an introduction, Crewe was your first job as a manager. You used to play for them and you won promotion with them 3 years ago from League Two up into League One. And as I say, you're listed as 33-1 to become Reading's next manager. So firstly, I'm going to ask the obvious question. Can I ask you if you've applied for the job or if you've had any contact at all with Reading about the manager's job there?
See, I'm doing you a disservice, Mark. I thought you were going to ask me, should I put a tenner on?
Yeah. Well,
oh, is that your second question?
But what's obviously, obviously, if you're on the short list at the moment, we know that you wouldn't be able to talk about it. But genuinely, whatever you can tell us, you're one of a number of managers that are listed as 33-1. Have you had any contact with the club? Have you applied for the job? Anything like that at this stage, David?
Well, I'll tell you sort of what I know the process to be.
Yeah.
And that might shed some light, if you like. In terms of the odds, I literally, and I'm saying this genuinely, I wouldn't, this is not, there's no sort of subtext to this at all. I wouldn't pay too much attention to any of the manager's odds until it gets really close to the end, and which point most people know. That's not trying to rule me in or rule me out or rule anyone in or anyone out. That's just across the board. Because bookmakers don't tend to know and they just hope that somebody has a punt, basically. Now, when I did my pro license, my independent study was all about the recruitment of head coaches and managers. So I spoke to quite a lot of chief execs, quite a lot of owners. I spoke to 4 specialist recruitment companies who had recruited 4 football clubs, because some football clubs outsource them. So I spoke to one guy who had basically recruited the last 4 Brighton managers, Hippier, Potter, Houghton, and I can't remember the 4th was. And he went through how they did it, which was fairly unique, but they've obviously done really well. I spoke to a guy, a chief exec in the Championship, who basically said, we just put a list together and we choose someone who's been promoted out of this division who we really like. And that was their remit. The point is that there is no hard and fast way. There is no sort of set recruitment sort of strategy. And this was all done. You won't find any research around this. So when I was doing this independent study, there has been no research done by the FA, the LMA, nothing. While I was doing the research, there's a fairly new association called the Institute of Sporting Directors, set up by Dr. Dan Parnell just up the road from me in Liverpool, who did a similar study with sporting directors to try and sort of streamline what their roles were. But he came to very similar conclusion in the fact that there's no set recruitment processes, and it's usually done by who you know rather than what you know, and usually not from a best fit point of view. I suppose the best sort of examples I can sort of give you is probably QPR, that go from a Michael Beale to a Neil Critchley to a Gareth Ainsworth. They are different managers, all three of them. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. That's not the point. They've just gone for three different managers. I don't know who's the best fit. That's not what I'm saying. But they've obviously had a change of tack somewhere up in the boardroom, because that's their different profiles of managers. So the sort of bottom line is that it depends, to try and bring it back to Reading, it all depends on what they're looking for and who they know. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, well, I've got two more questions for you, David. Then I'm going to hand over to Johnny, who I know we've got a whole long list of questions, because we're kind of interested in trying to relate this to how Reading might be looking at this process. So thanks for your insight so far. So my first question is a fairly kind of might be a quick answer, I don't know, but I'll ask it anyway. Is Reading, having been a League One manager, is the Reading manager's job the type of role that you might be interested in next?
Yeah, I see Reading now as a rebuilding job. It's not a sort of catastrophic, oblivion. I don't think. It depends how deep set the financial problems are, but it's my understanding that they're not like catastrophic. They're not Bury-esque, if you like. And I inherited a football team in my previous job that needed rebuilding. The team needed rebuilding. It was run on a shoestring. I think I get the best out of people when the sort of backs are against the wall. I see that as Reading right now. I also think, though, not to be contrary, I also see them as a big fish in League One. I don't think anyone can say that Reading are a big club or going to be a big club in League One, even in the current climate. I think they're a big draw for players and coaches and staff, but they're in a bit of a rebuilding phase. I think they've got some good people at the club, they really do, but it's going to take some time. Would it surprise me if Reading didn't get promoted next year? Not at all. It might actually be beneficial in the long run to get some really solid foundations. However, you don't want to be in League One for longer than you need to be, and apathy and acceptance of where you are. When I was a player, I can remember playing against Reading at the Majeski in League One. We actually went up with Rotherham. We got promoted with Millwall, and Reading finished third that year.
Thanks for the reminder, David. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Sorry, John. Sorry, we did lose at the Majeski.
That makes it better. Yeah.
In fact, you did the double. We lost at home 3-1 as well. Yeah. We had one lad broke his leg at the Majeski.
Yeah.
They were good, a real good team. Reading were the best team we played that year by a distance, better than Millwall. So they're a big draw. I actually think, irrespective of who goes up through the playoffs, I actually think League One won't be as strong next year as it was this year. There's a bit like the Premier League. There's a league within the league in League One. you've got 6, 8, maybe 9 big clubs, big clubs in League One. And I'd put Reading in that bracket next year. I don't think it'll be as that many next year, because obviously Plymouth have done unbelievable, gone up, Ipswich have gone up, Sheffield Wednesday, or a Barnsley. I know they're not necessarily massive clubs. They're big for League One. They are big for League One. Bolton is a heavily resourced League One club. Peterborough, they've been in the Championship very recently. Never mind Portsmouth. That kind of Oxford and down near the bottom, just survived. They're in the playoffs last year. I don't want to talk about them too much because I know it upsets. I don't want letters
as well. We know all about Derby.
Exactly. Derby have just missed out. They're going to have to get promoted next year. There are some huge clubs. Virtually everyone that we just mentioned within the last 5 years probably been in the Championship. It's not an easy league at all, League One. It just isn't anymore. It's a really, really competitive league. And I think Reading are going to find that out. I just hope that they can steady the ship, and you can see, for me, if I'm a key decision maker, it's about steadying the ship, not taking on any more water, and then seeing some sort of shoots of growth next year. I don't think that's unambitious at all. I think it's realistic, and I think gives you the best chance for 2 years to 6 years continual growth, as opposed to either throwing loads of money at it or trying to run before you can walk, because you'll end up in that horrible cycle.
And David, so that was my first question of the two. So this is my second one, and then I'm going to hand to Johnny to take over. You talked a little bit about, so this question is about the process that a club goes through when they're recruiting a manager. And you've kind of hinted at it already, that there's not like a set way of doing things. It varies from club to club. But is it, the suspicion, if you like, among the Reading fans is that we've had managers that have been pushed on us at Reading by an agent. So we just seem to have this, you talked about don't pay any attention to the odds. And that's certainly been the case with Reading. We had, nobody had ever heard of Veljko Paunovic. We'd obviously heard of Paul Ince, but he hadn't been a manager for 8 years. And it's just, you go, wow, really? Like Veljko Paunovic, never heard of him, et cetera, et cetera. So in terms of the likely process for Reading, with a head of recruitment, with a director of football, what do you think it might look like? Do managers apply for jobs these days? Do agents promote managers? Is it about the people that do a lot of clubs? You mentioned Brighton. I know Brighton they draw up a list of future candidates and they track those managers.
Yes.
A lot of clubs doing that, or how with a director of football in place, with a head of recruitment in place, how would you envisage a club like Reading, what the process for finding a new manager would look like?
What is the norm, as norm as can be, if you like. Agents put their clients into a football club, whether it be Reading or somewhere else. That gets whittled down to a long list and a short list, at which point the interview process occurs. Now, that might be done online initially to filter down. You've got to remember that not all owners are British, or there is multiple stakeholders that are in different parts of the country or different parts of the world. So it's often the case where a first contact is done online. Then from there it sort of goes on if you're still in the process. In terms of Reading, will that be done led by the director of football? The honest answer is I've no idea. I've absolutely no idea. You were saying about suspicions with the agent's involvement. That could have been true. I've no idea. I've genuinely no idea. What you hope, for me, if I'm any football fan, doesn't matter whether it's Reading or elsewhere, I just want someone who's the best fit. Now, there's a question before that for me, and this is a question that I ask of board members. Do you know what it should look like? Do you know what you want it to look like? Because in my case, if a owner, president, chairman said to me, we want to get in the box at the earliest opportunity and provide loads of crosses, that wouldn't be for me. That job wouldn't be for me because I don't coach that way. That's not my philosophy, which is not a problem. You shake hands and you go, thank you very much. And they then have to reflect on why I've got that far in the process, which you'd hope they do. Again, part of my pro licence study is no football clubs do any reflection whatsoever. So they make the same mistakes again, but then that's a different kettle of fish. So there is vast amounts of data, so you can objectify all this. So you know what it should look like, because let's be honest, 90% of Reading fans will know what a good Reading team looks like. Probably 98%. Same as 98% of Wolves fans will know what a good Wolves team look like, etc. Because it's individual to each of them football clubs. But what does that look like, and how do we quantify that, and how do we get the manager who plays that way? That's the key. And that's where Brighton and your Brentfords, etc., are streets ahead. So if it is a guy from, the Balkans, or doesn't matter, South America, it doesn't matter where, if he's the best fit and there's been a process to justify it, you've got more than half a chance. If it's, I just know him, or he knows him, or he's a good bloke, you're leaving it more open to chance. And this is not specific to Reading, because I'm not here to criticise anyone. But I know that if I was in any position to appoint managers, I'd first be looking internally in terms of what does it look like? What do we want it to look like? Because there's a whole, as I alluded to with QPR, I'm not saying they've appointed any bad managers. They haven't. They're all brilliant managers. The three that I mentioned, Beale, Critch, who I worked with at Crewe, and Gareth Hayes is one of the nicest blokes you could ever wish to meet. The good seasoned professionals, ones managing Rangers, they're really good. One being the assistant manager at Aston Villa, good people, but they're different. So if QPR have gone, actually, we've had a look and we're going to change our club philosophy, our football philosophy, well then fine, they've changed the manager accordingly. If they haven't, then they've got a problem in their recruitment processes because they've gone for a different fit to what they probably want it to look like. So for me, I'd be asking, if I'm a Reading fan, what do we want it to look like? Not who do we want, what do we want it to look like? And then try and find someone that plays that way.
Yeah. Johnny, I'm going to hand over to you now. You've been waiting very patiently, so over to you.
No worries. David, I was thinking back, actually, you're talking about management. Like, for the last 3 seasons, any manager of Reading hasn't had a free reign of running the club, as in regards to transfers. It's all been, basically square pegs, round holes. And I'm not defending any manager that we've had, but it doesn't help, does it, as a kind of build a team when you can't pick the players that you want, for a squad. It's been like, well, he's available. Now we've got an opportunity to start again, hopefully where we can actually recruit players that we want to get, as in, we want a winger, we want central midfielder, we go and buy him, blah, 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 blah. But what, as a guy who's been in that league, what do you think we need to do recruitment-wise? We've had so many issues with players. I don't think they're interested yet. It's come out this week with Noel Hunt, Lucas Giles.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Been on holiday, apparently, whatever. And it's been a symptom of Reading, regardless of all the other stuff that's gone on. It's, as a fan, it stinks. How do you go out and look for these players now? League One, you're not Championship players. You're not going to the Premier League. You're League One players. You go League Two, you go Championship. Where do you go and find these guys that go, yeah, I want to prove myself?
The last bit of your statement is the most crucial. So when I was manager at Crewe, we finished in the top half of League One with the lowest budget because we recruited brilliantly, and we had people who wanted to improve, people who wanted to develop, and they had 100% effort. You end up being 30. The biggest indicator for finishing position is budget. That's not me saying it. That's just lots of research. So to finish sort of 13 places above where your budget is, you've got to have done something right.
Yeah.
And that comes back to recruitment. That comes back to people. It comes back to people. No, I'm not going to criticize Lucas Shaw because I don't know the guy. But you want players who want to play for your football club. And it's easy to say it. You've got to really dig deep. That doesn't have to be the manager. Doesn't have to be the director of football. But it's got to be someone. It's got to be someone. You've got to ask lots of questions about character, about integrity. You know, do they do what they say they're going to do when nobody's watching?
Yeah.
Do they go and practice for 20 minutes their free kicks so that when Saturday comes and they get a free kick with 5 minutes to go, 22 yards out, that they're going to score? It's an obvious, easy one because it's just a set piece. You know, there's hundreds of things. Do they really want to improve?
Yeah.
Do they want to get better themselves?
Did you think League One's actually a better league for that because players are more hungry than the Championship in some ways?
Yes, there's a big disparity in players' wages, by and large. Not massive, but there's enough. There's enough to make it an incentive if money's there. For me, it was about, you know, playing at the highest level I could play at. That was it for me, as opposed to financial rewards. I played international football against the world champions three months after they won the World Cup in Germany. It's you know, did I get paid for it? Didn't get one penny.
Yeah,
wasn't interested. You know, it's not about. For me, it wasn't about money. It was about getting better every day. It was about being intellectually stimulated. It was about the coach devoting time to me and others, obviously not just me. Not just selfish in that sense, so I could get better every day. If you get better every day individually, you'll get better as a group. You get better as a team.
Yeah,
you get more results and performances improve. So that them green shoots that I spoke about earlier, you get to see it. Football fans aren't stupid. They're not. You know, they're not. You've probably seen between you, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000 Reading games, probably more. So you'll know what it looks like. You'll know, you can see it. So, now, it might not have detail or, you know, anything like that, or massive tactical understanding. That's not, but you know, you just sort of got that feel. Players know, but you've got to give them that. You've got to make them believe that this is it. This is what it is. Yeah. So come this time of year, they've got an 80-year-old grandma running on the pitch kissing them because they've got promoted. Because that's, you know, that's what it's about. You know,
and I think that's the thing with Reading. Like over the last few seasons, we haven't had a system or a formation. It's kind of just like being players filling a gap because that's all we've got. And you know, it's not like we've managed to be able to go out and go, right, this is the way we play. This is the Reading way, as we used to have. And like now, you know, as a manager yourself, I've got very interested to see. You know, we've got like Tony Mowbray doing a great job at Sunderland. Neil Warnock, bless him, as you know, again, he came out and actually said some very nice things about Reading, which I was very surprised about. But what he does is amazing. But then you've got a guy like Stephen Schumacher at Plymouth, who's the younger version, doing his role. And I'm sure there's so many more different levels.
Yeah.
There's not one thing that fits all, is it? So it's such an interesting model that you go, how does that work? He came in at Sunderland, I think, I don't think they sacked a manager at the start of the season. I could be wrong. Tony Mowbray, it was our old school, bang, gets in top 6.
Yeah.
An untested manager does that at Plymouth. Like, it's not obvious, is it?
What you've got to understand with both them examples, really, slightly different. Shuey, who I did my pro license with, great bloke. He's been there for 5 or 6 years now.
Mm.
So when Ryan Lowe became manager, Shuey moved all his family down there. Ryan Lowe didn't. Became fully immersed in the club. Talk about wanting to be involved, wanting to improve. That was Shuey. Gets an opportunity as manager when Lowe leaves. Why? Because he's in the club. Because he's ingrained in the club. He gets success. The stability off the pitch. They understand what it is they're trying to do. You look at Sunderland after all the Netflix series and all the sort of upheaval that all that brought. They've now got a guy from Monaco who's young himself, the billionaire guy. There's stability. So Alex Neil goes in, gets him promoted. Did ever so well. But there was stability behind the scenes, so he could just do his job. Then Tony Mowbray comes in, experienced Championship manager, builds on that. Suddenly they're 3 games away from Wembley.
Yeah.
And
Neil's stuck at Stoke, who's as bad a club as Reading in so many ways, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's stability there. I think they've recruited poorly over a number of years, and Alex is sorting that out, I have to say. I think Alex will sort them out over the next sort of year or two. I do. I think they've had big earners that they've, big contracts falling out of the Premier League, and they've had to suck that up for a number of years. So for me, a club like Reading, I go, stability off the pitch is crucial. That's got to happen as quick as they can, because upheaval, turmoil, Wigan is a great example. I went to Staff again this month, 5th time this year. Relegated. You don't.
Horrible, isn't
it? I've been there. I have been there. I got paid late 3 months on the trot at a football club I was at. It's not nice. You're getting direct debits bouncing for your mortgage, all that kind of stuff, because you want your wages to go in the bank. That's how people live. Footballers are no different.
No.
Sorry, John. I just got a question about something you were talking about, the players wanting to play for a club, and you look at no way we were talking about the Man City game and the way that they play before we started recording. So I'm obviously not comparing Man City and Reading, but when Reading have had teams that have been successful, it's been about the team. We had good players. If you think of the 106 season, that first season in the Premier League where we finished 8th, it looks like the players almost know what's going to happen before it happens. Whereas you contrast that with this season and the last few seasons to an extent with Reading, it looks like 11 individual players that have, in some cases, they look like they've only just met. So how do you, when you talked about doing a rebuild, and then your experience of, doing well with Crewe on a low budget, for example, how does somebody come in now to Reading and turn and recruit the right players and then get them to play in a as a team where everyone knows what they're doing? How do you turn that around?
There's a couple of things first before you get talking about football, in terms of values, in terms of understanding of what's expected. Not going on holiday in the middle of a season is one. Trying your best, being honest, trustworthy, integrity, all them things. Now that should be a given, but it's not. We're talking about human beings. So you have to be really crystal clear about your values and about what you expect. And also, further to that, if anybody steps outside of them boundaries, what happens then? So before you've even gone outside and done one training session, everyone understands where the manager is at. There's clarity, so everyone knows. Then you go out and basically replicate clarity on the football pitch. It's not a complicated game. You've got to simplify it. When we sort of devise coaching sessions, we will speak about talking to the thickest player. We don't name them. We usually don't have to because everyone knows who it is in the football club. But we will talk about, can he understand this? Now, if he understands it, you can build to get to the bright ones, whether that's tactically bright, whether that's technically bright, the game understanding elements. You can build on that. But ultimately, everyone's got to sing from the same hymn sheet so that they don't look like 11 strangers. It comes through simplicity and clarity first and foremost. Once you've got that, you can start with underpinning values and philosophy and and working practices. You can start to build.
Yeah, and I'll hand back to you in a sec, Johnny. But you have recent experience as a manager in League One last season, David. In terms of what Reading have got to look forward to, what they can expect next season, we know all about teams like Derby, Blackpool and Wigan, but we're also going to be playing the likes of Charlton, Portsmouth, Oxford, Wycombe, Leyton Orient, Cambridge, Cheltenham, Bristol Rovers, etc. As a manager in League One last season, how tough a league is League One, and how much of a difference is there between League One and the Championship?
There's a difference. There's a difference. Teams are less physical. There's actually more football played. 100% there's more football played. You still get physical teams. You still get direct teams, but they aren't as physical as teams in the Championship. There is, in my experience, certainly I've watched a lot of football across lots of divisions, all 4 divisions this year. The Championship is probably the most physical, coupled with directness. It depends how you classify physicalness. The quickest and the paciest and the more power is in the Premier League. In terms of strength and power and direct football, Championship wins hands down. You get some of them teams in League One. Burton are a fairly direct team. Shrewsbury are a direct team. That's not a criticism. That's how they play, and it's effective for them. Really effective. But it's not every week. You'll also get Charlton are quite fluid. They're trying to build. They're trying to go through that sort of turmoil and get back to some grounding. Oxford have had, after a good season last season, a real upheaval of a season and just survived by the skin of the teeth. But they'll probably come good. So you get a real mixed bag. You do get a real mixed bag. And nowhere is easy to go. It's the same as the Championship. You just don't get easy places to go. You go to Cheltenham on that tight pitch, get ready if you think you're just going to turn up and get 3 points. Because it doesn't happen, because they ask some questions of you. There's no getting around that. So you've got to be on your mettle. You've got to understand what you're doing. You've got to understand how to beat the opposition. And it'll be no different for Reading next year, that's for sure.
Johnny, bring you back in now.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen, Scunthorpe, Yeovil, both have gone down to 6th tier now.
Yeah,
both were established clubs in Championship, League One for years.
Yeah,
how does that happen? Obviously it happened, but they were decent clubs. I lived in Yeovil when they were a non-league team back in the late 80s. Yeah, and when they came a league team, I remember we drew 1-1 with them in the Championship about 7 years ago. It's horrible, isn't it? But there is a fear that could happen with Reading.
Well, I think that depends for me on off the field stuff more than on the field stuff. In both them cases, off the field stuff has been reflected on the pitch. certainly in Scunthorpe's case, it's been a horror show off the pitch. And if Reading's troubles continue and certainly worsen and deepen, League One's an unforgiving league.
Yeah.
It's not it's not that we were a championship team last year, so
everyone's gunning for you, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think it'll be like that, but there's no this is the beauty of English football. The pyramid runs really deep. That's why Wrexham very nearly beat Sheffield United in the cup and did beat. I think they beat a championship team. I can't remember, because that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And although league football is slightly different to FA Cup football in terms of occasion and all emotions and all this, Reading will have no God-given right to go anywhere in League One or play anyone at home and think we'll be all right here today. Because that's just not. We all know that's just not football in this league, because you can end up on that slippery slope, and the longer that slope happens, the harder it is to turn the ship round.
And we're already on that slope, aren't we? To be honest, you see the form of the team at the end of this last season, regardless of the players we've had. There has to be a dramatic change, doesn't there, in everything, players, management, style, whatever you want to call it, to do different, because it's not working and it's horrible.
Yeah. Again, because you've seen good Reading teams and you've seen poor Reading teams, and you know what the difference is. It's got to be really well managed, because in my experience, revolution in a football club, i.e. shifting loads of players and bringing loads in, very, very rarely works. So you've got to be mindful of that. But then at the same time, if you're not ruthless enough, you're just repeating the same problems, or you're susceptible to the similar problems. What do I go off in this kind of situation? Are they good people? Do they want to improve? Do they want to be here?
Yeah.
If you ask enough questions, you find out, has he got a big heart? Does he always play well when you're 3-0 up? It's easy then.
Yeah.
Who's the one at 3-0 down? I don't mean the one who's the most athletically the best, because they always show up, who always gets about the pitch. Who's the one who plays when you've lost 5 on the spin? Yeah. Who's the one who goes, I'm here?
And I think that's what like for Reading fans over the last 10 years, I hate to use this, I'm very passionate about mental health, but our team has been mentally weak so many times on the pitch. When we fall apart, we fall apart. It's like, it's a deck of cards. We go, and there's no leaders. There's not been, all the experienced players that we've had over a number of years. I'm not slating them as individuals, but we've had Chris Gunter, we've had Paul McShane, we've had blah 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 blah. As a team, we still fall apart, and we keep falling apart, and it's a mentality thing that needs to change. How do you do that?
There's been psychological studies that say, this is not in football, this is just in the general population, that if people see things wrong, so like on a busy bridge in London, 95% of people will walk past. So somebody could be, I don't know, in a bit of distress for whatever reason. 95% of people will walk past, because they are conforming to the norm. Footballers are no different on a football pitch. The real brave ones are the ones that go, hang on, this ain't right, fellas. And everyone goes, thank God for that, somebody said it.
Yeah.
Honestly, it happens all the time. You see it all the time. It's happening in the Premier League now with some of the teams near the bottom.
Yeah. Everyone goes, hides.
Southampton.
You can see it. Southampton, Leeds, Leicester. You can see it. People term it as confidence. It's not. It's a mindset. It's a mindset. You then can compare that to Everton. Not so much last night. Was it last night against Brighton?
Yeah. Smashed them, didn't they? It's the beauty of football.
2 weeks ago, they deserved to beat Leicester. It was already happening. And because they didn't win, everyone was like, they just drew with Leicester. I think it was 2-2. You could see it were happening. You could see the players were going, we're not having this. Here we go.
Yeah.
as a team, roll the sleeves up. Where's it come from? Manager, probably. Staff. But as players went, right, we're having a bit of this.
And
that's the difference.
Yeah. And David, let me ask you a couple of questions, then I'll hand back to Johnny again. Let's say you know, wherever your next job is, whether it's Reading or somewhere else, but let's use Reading as an example. You get the Reading job, you come in. What do you do on day one as the new manager of Reading?
What I would speak to the existing players. The players who are there next year. That would be my first job. Confidentially, right? Talk to me about yourself. I'd try and spend as much time with each player as I could afford. So whenever I'd use it as how I recruit players. So whenever I recruit players, I spend at least 3 hours with every one of them. So, and I ask them everything. And when I say everything, I'll say, tell me about yourself. So I don't even start with football. And they usually go, what do you want to know? I said, right, where were you born? Now, I normally know all this stuff because I've already done some homework. But there's a lot that I don't. So they'll tell me they're born in Reading. And I'll go, have you got a mum and a dad? Yes, I have. Are they together? Did they get married? What do they do? Are they divorced? Have you got brothers and sisters? Older or younger, what do they do? And I talk about them and their life for 2 hours before we even start talking about football. Did you like school? What was your favourite subject? Who was your favourite teacher? Least favourite subject? Least favourite teacher? And why? So there's always a why with them kind of questions. And you'd be surprised how many people that say, my favourite teacher was Mr. Bloggs. Why? He just got me. Then when you ask, who was your favourite coach or manager in your career? Normally they don't want to tell you at first. Then they realise it's a psychologically safe environment and they'll tell you. And I go, why? And they go, he just got me. It's not about so much the best manager in terms of the one with the greatest credentials. It's the one who gets them. And it's the key. That's the key thing. So then it's like, how do you learn? You know, what do you enjoy doing outside of, this building? Do you like watching? Are you a gamer? Do you like watching movies? Do you go out with your girlfriend all the time? Do you like pop concerts? There's no right and wrong answer, but you're understanding that music's a big part of that person's life. You're understanding that actually this kid's a gamer. He might be up till 3 a.m. He might come in bleary-eyed. Do not think he's getting drunk. It's probably not. It's probably a sleep problem. You might have to educate him. So you're picking up all these cues. I always ask them, what's your favourite biscuit? Always. Rather than tell us a joke, because that's a bit old hat. So I go, Mark, what's your favourite biscuit?
I don't know, bourbon. Because it's got chocolate in it.
Right, okay. Nothing wrong with that. Fairly standard answer. Chocolate digestives, that kind of thing.
There's a lot about him, David. Really does. Yeah.
It's fairly standard. There's nothing to be learned from it. But I had one lad say, I'm not telling you. So come on. So because you get short. If they say shortbread, you think, well, okay, maybe a bit boring. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe a bit sort of straight-laced. If they say Garibaldi, you might think, oh, they've travelled a bit. So this one lad, he goes, I'm not telling you. I said, why not? It's only me and you. Come on. I said, no, I can't. It's the way I eat it. I said, no, that's a bit like telling me half a joke. I said, come on. He went, it's a custard cream. I said, right. He went, well, I break it in half and I'll lick the middle. And then I eat the 2 biscuit bits. I went, that's all right. What does that show me? Confident enough to tell me, not shy. In the end, with a bit of persuasion, he's gonna tell me stuff. He's gonna try things. He's gonna be inventive on the pitch, but he's inventive how he eat a biscuit. He's gonna he don't eat too many of them because he eats them slowly. Whereas if you shove a packet full of bourbons in, and making sure the sports scientist is on you and your diet.
Johnny, David, just want to ask Johnny a question here. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? David asking about biscuits might be a good fit for Reading, being the biscuit men. Were you thinking the same, or was that just me?
I think it's just a shameless plug. He wants a job. He's just going for it, isn't he? No, that's what it is.
Listen,
Yeah, he's done his research, Mark.
The point is,
back on him. He's got. Oh yeah, I go for the biscuit question. The bound to do the job now.
Yeah.
listen, the point.
He hasn't asked me which biscuit I like. I'm a bit offended.
Go on. What's your favourite biscuit, Johnny?
I can't tell you.
Brilliant. I'll take it as a custard cream that you pull them apart.
Yeah.
No, I'm more of a hobnob. Anyway, there's another link for you there.
Yeah, hobnob anyone. Yeah.
The point is, my first thing, if I went into a football club, was to get to know as many of the players as I can and spend as much time as I can over the first week, if you like, first few days. It doesn't have to be done necessarily face-to-face, although it is much better because there's all them visual clues. And also spend as much time with Mark Bowen to go, right, how are we going to improve?
Yeah.
How are we getting there?
That leads me on to my next question, and then Johnny, over to you for your last couple of questions. How does that relationship work, David, between a manager, a head of recruitment, and a director of football? So I'm guessing the three of you sort of work relatively closer together in that scenario.
Again, you've got to be on the same page. What does it look like? Do you want a tall, quick, athletic number 9? Or do you want a short, nippy number 9 because you've got really quick wingers or really bright and inventive wingers that are going to thread balls for you? Because there's a big difference between Erling Haaland and Jamie Vardy. Both out-and-out number 9s. Play the game different ways. So there's no point me as a manager saying, right, I'm not sure we're going to be good enough, so we're going to play a lot of counter-attacking football. That's a Jamie Vardy type. When really the team's full of a bright, inventive Kevin De Bruyne's and Ilkay Gundogan's and Grealish's, and we actually just need a finisher. Well, they're different. They're different characteristics. So you've got to be on the same page to as much as finances allow. So, for example, it's not always possible to get what you want. It's very rarely possible to get what you want. So you've got to understand what you're getting, but also what you're missing out on these players so that they become the best fit. And then it's working out, do they have a growth mindset? Do they want to learn? Do they want to, because they're going to have to get this little bit. We're not bothered about this bit that they haven't got, but they're definitely going to need to have this little bit. I don't know, a tactical understanding to press out of possession. Well, if they're going, I'm not doing that, I just score goals. Well, you're actually backing the wrong horse, even though the rest of it is a good fit. That one bit's going to let you down. So you might go somewhere else. And it's making sure you're all on the same page so you know what you're getting. You know what you're looking for. It's really, really crucial.
Yeah. Johnny, over to you, last couple of questions. Then I've got one more for David after that.
Yeah. David, you're talking about top strikers, and we've got one at Reading now. I'm thinking, unfortunately, I think Shane Long's looks like he's retiring, and he's been an absolute legend, and that's sad. But Andy Carroll in League One, how would you build a team around someone like that? Because he's absolutely, like, he does what he does, and people have critics of him. I think we missed out with the red card he got against Luton, but he's still passionate about playing, and he's still dangerous. He does what he does, and he loves playing at Reading. If you were trying to build a team around him, hint for your job application, what would you do?
Good question. I've played against Andy Carroll, and he didn't score, and I did actually when he was at Preston.
Okay, go then. Perfect match.
Yeah, good pick, Johnny. Very good pick. Everyone knows Andy Carroll's main strengths in the air. He's a good hold-up player. He is someone that brings players in, and he scores some goals. Is he as prolific as what you need? No. Is he probably as good a player as an all-round player as Lucas Shaw? Probably not. Can he be more effective? Most definitely. So if you're going to,
I think.
Well, that says it all, doesn't it? That says it all. If he's hungrier, if you want to build a team around one player, I would never advise that. By the way, because unless you've got an equally capable understudy. There's lots of examples of a player getting injured and the whole season turns to rat crap because that one person's injured. But if you're going to, in this hypothetical situation, you've got to play to his strengths. So if he's going to bring players into the game, you need somebody running off him, in behind him. You need people who can cross the ball well. You're going to need number 8s who can run beyond him. So you're going to need athletic players around him and bright players around him because he's inventive enough, but he's not going to be inventive to swivel on a sixpence on the edge of the box and in the top bin 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 games because that's not his game. So you've got to understand, like I said to you right at the beginning, you've got to understand what Reading is as a football club, what it looks like, and then what each of them component parts are. Mm. And if that means, do I associate Reading with a big, tall number 9? Don't.
No, we've had some great strike partnerships, haven't we, in the past? Curitan, Doyle, Kitson, Butler, Forster.
Butler and Forster, Butler and Curitan.
Yeah.
Really bright. What's Butts? 6'1", 6'2"?
Yeah.
He was all right in the air, but it wasn't his real strength. His strength was between his ears.
Yeah.
Curitan was a little nippy one who going behind you. Forster was a little nippy one who going behind you. They're the Reading teams that I remember.
Yeah.
The Reading teams that I think is synonymous with Reading. The little bright players, the little.
Do you think that's old-fashioned though, David?
No.
Is it in this modern world of football? Is that old-fashioned to have these 4-4-2 systems that it's like, you can't play like that anymore. You have to have 5-3-2s and a 1 up front and all this stuff.
So when you say old school, let me ask you this: what formation did England play in the 1990 World Cup?
Are you thinking, Johnny, or have you frozen?
He's purposely just turned off his camera.
No. Sorry, no. Someone just went there. Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened. I thought it was David's, not mine. Sorry.
I like your style. You've just got yourself 30 seconds thinking time.
Yeah. No. It don't happen. Sorry about that. It's island weather conditions. The wind changed.
Did you hear the question? You're on about old school and everything like that. What formation did England play in the 1990 World Cup? I don't know if you can remember.
It's 4-4-2. I could be wrong. 4-1. Bearsy behind Lineker.
Under Barry Robson, they were playing 3-5.
Yeah.
As a general rule of thumb, right? There'll be off games, right? These things are cyclical.
Yeah.
They are. 4-4-2 will come back in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
With a twist, with a variation.
Yeah.
They will. No, what did Nathan Jones play at Luton? 4-diamond-2. Is that a 4-4-2 and a variation of it? Probably. There's lots of different.
He's an interesting one, David. This is a manager, isn't he? He went up at 2 levels, and is he out of his depth, or is that now his cards marked as the manager, or?
I think he was dealt a bit of a raw hand, to be honest, but that's my opinion. I like Nathan. Passionate, really good.
I think Mark Bowen likes him as well.
Yeah, I like. Well, he's Welsh. They're both Welsh. So
Chris Wilder's the other one that's just seems to have. I know you said don't listen to the odds, but Chris Wilder's the one that has sprung up this week. He's a real contender for next Reading manager, but.
He's got a job, hasn't
he? Is he looking?
He did yesterday.
Yeah. Look, I genuinely don't know. So you're asking me to speculate on things that I don't. You guys read the press about Reading. I don't. So I've got.
David, I'm going to finish by asking you something that you do know about, which is League One. So. The 3 teams that come down from the Championship last season, including Derby, did well. So Derby finished just out, I think, what was it, a point outside the playoffs or goal difference or something, I can't remember. But the 3 teams that came down last time did well. Which clubs, and including Reading if you like, or not if you think otherwise, which clubs do you think will do well, as things stand, because we don't know all of the teams that are going to be in League One. I think there's still 4 that are undecided, but apart from that, we know all the teams in League One. Which of the teams that are definitely in League One at this stage are going to do well next season, do you think?
I think Derby, they're definitely going to be there. I think, depending on who doesn't go up out of Sheffield Wednesday, Bolton and Barnsley will be strong again. Peterborough are always going to be there. I think Oxford are going to come again. Portsmouth are always a challenge. I look at the teams that have come up. I think Orient, they've got a good manager. They're going to find it tough, as always, but I think they'll be okay. Can't say the same for Stevenage, but it's going to be a really tough place to go. Really tough place to go. Northampton, I think they might struggle. But for me, then of the teams that have come down, I you might not like me saying this, but I see Wigan and Reading very similar, in the sense that the financial stuff could be a millstone for success, and how quickly all that's resolved, and if it is resolved, gives you the greatest chance. That's why Derby haven't gone up this year. That's why I think they'll be strong next year, because it has been resolved, and we've had a year of consolidation, green shoots. If I'm Reading, I wouldn't be disappointed with a Derby season, but it can be even worse because of the financial stuff. Blackpool are a bit different. I think Blackpool have overachieved, getting where they are, and I can see them being strong, but not a super strong relegated team in my book. So it's going to be interesting again, and it'll be interesting to see how they get on.
Johnny, have you got one last question before we let?
Yeah, like you're saying there, David, about teams that are going down. Like we remember, say 25 years ago when we went back into League One or whatever it was back then. It's not going to be easy. And you look at the teams like Ipswich. It's like it used to be Premier League. Now the Championship's like the rejects of the Premier League. Now there's League One rejects of the Premier League, isn't it? It's such a strong league. You can't even go, oh yeah, it's League One, we'll be out there next week. It doesn't work like that anymore, does it?
No, you have a look at the teams in League One that have been historical champion clubs, Reading being one of them. The vast majority of them are there because of financial mismanagement. Ipswich were there for that. Derby are there. Ipswich have just left, obviously. Reading are going into it. Wigan, Blackpool to a certain degree from 10 years ago when the Oystons had it. You look at them big clubs. Sunderland, why? Financial mismanagement.
Yeah.
They end up in that league because they can fall further. They tend to stop at League One. There's not many that then go to League Two. Not the real big clubs. It's the smaller provincial clubs, your Scunthorpes, your Yeovils, that can and do fall further. But that's why we all love football, and that's why you've got to sort out off-field stuff to give yourself the best chance. It doesn't mean the football club can't continue and grow. You just end up growing or stagnating, or growing at a slower rate, and everyone else passes you, and that's when trouble hits.
And I think that's the problem with the owners at Reading. We're still waiting for news. We're still waiting for people to talk. We don't get that communication. Even some of the players, Andy Eardom, the captain, hasn't come out and spoken since we've got relegated. A couple of players have, and it doesn't look good for the fan. Personally, I think you expect to hear more. It's doom and gloom time, but we're part of the club, and you're a manager. How would you see that?
For me, it's all about what's happened in the last 8 months. That if you've done it right over the last 8 months and spoke properly and spoke openly and honestly as you can't be completely open as a manager at all times. Fans understand. They understand context, subtext. They do. They forgive people because it's their club. But you've got to give fans enough so that they feel part of it. And if there's that disconnect, you've got to work really hard to get it back as a football club. That's not just the manager or the players. they're the easiest ones to get it by. But it's media team, social media teams, and owners and all the rest of it, and performances, and obviously winning helps. That's a surefire way of getting fans on board. But it's not easy. It's not easy.
All right. Well, David, just want to finish off by saying, obviously, if you do become the new Reading manager, we know all about what you're going to do now. So
no pressure.
just want to say thanks ever so much for joining us and that insight. And you are, you said don't pay any attention to the odds, but you are apparently 33-1 to become the next Reading manager. I just want to ask you one final question before we let you go. So our co-host, who isn't on tonight because he's got a game that he's preparing for, big cup game, Dylan Kerr, a legend as a player, and has done really well in Africa and Asia as a manager. So he, since 2014, he's won 7 trophies. He's taken over at 4, and this is all at the top level in 3 different countries. So Vietnam, Tanzania, South Africa. 7 trophies since 2014. So league titles, cups. And he's also taken over. He's got a bit of a Neil Warnock type of reputation in South Africa. He's taken over at 4 clubs that have been in the relegation zone in the South African Premier Division. Kept them all up.
Swallows. Was that the last one?
Yeah, doing the Swallows was the last one. His current side, Marimo Gallants, took over when they're at the bottom of the table. They're now, they're now unbeaten in the league since he took over. They're in the semi-finals of the CAF Confederation Cup, which is sort of like South Africa's equivalent of the Europa League. But he doesn't, let alone Reading, where he is genuinely a Reading legend. He's in the Hall of Fame. He won Player of the Season. Fans who have been supporting Reading back then love him. He just doesn't seem to get a look in like England or Scotland. Why doesn't a player like that, who's been successful everywhere he's gone in other countries, why doesn't somebody like that get a look in this country?
Usually because they don't know. I said they being key decision makers, whoever they may be, whether that's owners, presidents, agents. That's the biggest reason. Out of sight, out of mind to a certain degree. It's a bit like sort of saying, why hasn't the South African Premier League champions recruited me? They don't know about me. It's the opposite in reverse. And there's always that, can he cut it here? Whether that's right or wrong, now that's where data comes in, and you can compare leagues and you can compare styles as well. And there's far more. It's far easier now to ascertain levels and fit. So, would it take a brave man to appoint Dylan Kerr in this country? Yes. That doesn't mean to say that they'd be wrong. They could be very, very, very smart. It just takes a far greater leap of faith. The guy that what's he called, Palkovic?
Veljko Paunovic. Yeah.
Paunovic. Where's he come from? Serbia, whoever it was.
Yeah.
Because someone knew him. There was an assessment done. All the rest of it. Network is net worth. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of brutal reality of it, and it's often it's rubbish that's how people are assessed. But unfortunately, football is quite a small industry, and that's the currency, if you like. The real key ones, because I'm pretty certain not many people had heard of Roberto De Zerbi in this country. Whereas I'd seen him at Shakhtar, I'd seen him at Sassuolo in Italy. Unbelievable. Brighton are smart. Brighton get it. People don't devote enough resources. Clubs don't devote enough resources to players and managers. They just don't. They key bits of anybody's business, any business, and the upshot is that people like Dylan Kerr miss out. That's the horrible reality of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, David, thanks ever so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, and be interesting to see, whether it's you or someone else. Be very interested. All the fans want to know the next Reading manager is going to be. Just a word on, finally. I keep saying finally, but this is the final one. Just a word on somebody like Noel Hunt. So former player, popular as a former player, scored loads of goals, played in the Premier League for Reading, and then got involved in the youth sides, interim manager. Nobody's kind of holding too much against him because of the position that Reading were in before he came in. Obviously, we wanted Reading to stay up. He wanted Reading to stay up. Didn't happen. Do you think it's too soon for someone like him to be in contention as a manager, or do you think that maybe Reading, if they are kind of looking at financial elements, are they considering somebody like Noel Hunt? And that, I promise, is my final question.
The only people who know that are the key decision makers in terms of the financial side of it. The only other person in terms of is he ready or is he not ready who knows is Noel Hunt. Now, I've come up against Noel when he was assistant manager at Swindon with Richie Wellens. Good guy, knowledgeable. Is he ready? I don't think he can ever be ready. Does he want the job? Does he see himself? Is that his personality? Can he handle being the key decision maker day to day? And my experience of Noel Hunt is a really nice guy, smiling, bubbly, and he deliver bad news. You're not playing today, and this is the reason why. And I stick by it in a very nice way, not as probably as matter of fact as that. I don't know. He'll have had it said to him in his career that some people aren't very comfortable. I don't know. So I'm not knocking him, but he's got to ask himself all these questions. And key decision makers have got to understand and know the answers to all these questions if they're considering him.
Yeah.
And if they get it wrong, he'll be playing players that shouldn't be playing because he don't want to upset them, and it turns to not very good stuff. It's another part of the process, and hopefully they know more about him than any other candidate because he's been in the building.
All right. Not really a question, because I did promise that's the final one. But
this is Mark's 500th last question there, Dave.
It's not a question, it's a statement. If you do become, I'm not even going to ask this as a question. If you do become Reading manager, David, we'd love to have you back on, because Noel Hunt was a guest before he became interim manager, and then of course, we tried to get.
We jinxed it.
Yeah, so but we got him on as a guest just, I think, about 2 weeks before he got the role. So it's not a question; it's a statement. So
I'd be more than happy to come back on.
Oh, there you go. All right. Well, we'll hold you to that if it happens. But David, fantastic to speak to you.
Cheers, David.
And a reminder to our listeners and our YouTube viewers that on tomorrow evening's episode, our guest is Reading FC women's defender Lily Woodham. And then on Friday evening, we'll be joined by Dylan Kerr and several Reading fans to discuss what needs to happen in the summer, or certainly their opinions about that, and what type of managers and players they think Reading will need for next season in League One. So, thanks very much, David. Really great to have you on as a guest again.
No problem. Thank you much.
Cheers, David. Look after yourself, mate.
Thanks. Bye-bye.